Since the dawn of time, man has yearned for the answer to one question. To measure from the tip or the base. It's about to get technical, ladies and gentlemen. We're about to use terms like unit footprint, so if you're easily bamboozled, you should probably leave now. Here we have a perfectly standard scene that you'll come across in your Age of Sigmar games. We've got some dwarf hammerers taking on some skeleton spearmen. So when you decide to measure from the tip, what you're really saying is, I'm going to measure from the model's footprint. And as you can see, there are vast inconsistencies within the units regarding the footprint. As you can see with these dwarf hammerers, there's very little spillage over the side of the base. They pretty much fill that square nicely. So whether you measure from the model or the base, it doesn't make a huge amount of difference. When it comes to these skeleton warriors though, it's a very different matter. If you look at the difference in footprint size between the skeletons that have their spears held out and those that have their spears in a more erect fashion, then you can see that it's 2 or 3 times the difference in size. Now, I've always believed that the models were an abstract representation of the soldier on the battlefield, and that base represents the space in which he is moving about. Now, all these skeleton warriors have exactly the same stats, but a few of them are vastly larger than the other, using the measure from the model method. And those who may say, well, they're spearmen, they're supposed to take up more space, why don't you just model all your skeletons to have their spears poking forwards? I would say, well, in the rules of Age of Sigmar, spears grant you an additional inch of range, so that's already taken into account, so you don't need to use a larger model. If I wanted to set up this unit of spearmen in their deployment zone, right at the front as far as they could go, they wouldn't be able to look like this. They would look more like this. Now, as you can see, that's just a horrible mess. And you have to get directly above the unit to actually see where each one comes out to. Now, considering the bases don't matter and you're supposed to pretty much ignore them, that means that they probably expect you to pile your models on top of each other's bases like so, to get them as close together as possible, so you can get more of them in range to attack. So you could do that and choose to destroy your lovingly crafted bases, or you could not do that and then you could go through the tedious process of measuring exactly how far each model is from the edge of his base, and then working out how many of them should be able to attack based on that, and then bringing in the back of the unit in an abstract fashion, and essentially saying, okay, the back of the unit's there, but really it's there because they should be piled on top of each other's bases. From here, who looks closer to the dwarves? Clearly the skeleton on the left. But if we look from above, you'll see that the skeleton on the right is actually closer because of the tip of his spear. When you're measuring from the base, it's much easier to judge these things because you're measuring from 2 level surfaces that are right down there at the table. You're measuring from there to there. When you're measuring from the model, you really have to get directly above to assess the situation accurately. And that's just awkward, especially when models are halfway across the table. You're not taking anything away from the Age of Sigmar rules if you want to measure from the base, because really, if you use an army like this, it makes no difference at all. So everyone could just model their miniatures so they perfectly fill the square or the circle if they wanted, and then you essentially would be measuring from the base anyway. So it's not changing the way the game is played, it just makes it neater, it's easier to measure the distances, and easier to position your troops in an organised manner without this kind of malarkey going on. I feel like we're only just scratching the surface of this issue, so let me know what you think, and then I'll read out some of the comments and bring this up as a discussion topic on the Andy and Rem show this week, and we'll delve further into the debate.